Greetings, my name is Diana Powell, your main host for this amazing show. I would like to welcome you to gotkushTV's showing of its Black Group Economics Business Show, the solution to the lack of money in the Black community, showing monthly on gotkushTV. The aim of this show is to make group economics popular culture practice within the Black community, to make Black people more conscious of how we spend our money, and to teach group economics in its simplest form. To support us with this conversation, let's introduce our co-hosts. Charmaine Simpson, co-founder of the Black History Studies and Black Market and Film Festival. Robin Walker, historian and author. Amongst many scholarly achievements, Brother Robin is widely known for his book, When We Ruled. Cheryl Phoenix, founder of UK Black Links, the UK's largest Black business database. And Esther Stanford, our expert in politics, laws of the land, and Black reparation. So stick around for the second half of the show where we'll be showcasing actual businesses in the community you can support right away. Let's get started then. So what is group economics? Group economics is a community of people of the same kind producing goods, services, jobs and business opportunities for their own people. Ultimately trading amongst themselves where the money circulates 8 to 12 times before it leaves the community or group. What is Black group economics? Well, it's a focus on Black people practicing group economics. Any group can practice group economics. What is needed to be able to practice group economics? Well, just to reiterate, the model we'll be using as a guideline for this show is taken from Dr. Claude Anderson's Paranomics series. You can find Dr. Claude's work on YouTube if you Google his name or check out his website, www.paranomics.com. Dr. Claude Anderson states that there are 7 levels to Black economic liberation, but for this series we'll be focusing on the first 4. Each of these levels will have an episode dedicated to looking at the subject in more detail. Levels to Black group economics 1 to 4. 1. There must be a Black community or group that are producing goods, services, jobs, business opportunities for their own people. 2. There must be a code of conduct. That code must be, money must be spent within a Black-owned business unless you have no alternative but to do otherwise. 3. Within this community, we must have an economic structure that educates us to sustain it, such as events, study groups, workshops, or classes, which is what this show is set out to do. And 4, lastly, there must be a group or organization that will speak for you in politics. Then you can dictate to the state what we think is culturally, politically appropriate for our people. Greetings, Robin. Why is the group in group economics important?
There are certain things that groups can achieve that individuals can't. When we look at groups, they can build communities as opposed to neighborhoods. Neighborhoods is where people sleep. That's not where they work. Whereas communities is where the businesses are there, people work there. People provide work for each other's children there. And that's very, very important. If we look at London, you can see that Asians in Southall have established a community. Arabs in Paddington have established a community. The Chinese in Soho have established a community. The Kurds in Green Lanes have established a community. And we're still asking the question, whereabouts in London have the Black community established a proper community?
And with that in mind then, have you noticed any trends in how we function as a group compared to when we don't?
I think if we were to plot a trend, I think what's happened with many of our younger people, a lot of our younger people really do feel British, because when we were growing up, you hardly saw Black people on TV. Now we're part of the mainstream, so people feel British, and that feeling British lasts right up until a young person gets to about 21 and they're trying to find work. And then when the discrimination kicks in, then they realize that they've been fooled up to this point. So I think a lot of our younger people are not trying to build something of their own until the 21 and it kicks in. But I'm not blaming them, because the truth is our generation should have left an infrastructure for them to walk into. We should have left business and property for them to walk into. And the truth is our generation failed to do that.
But could you give us an example when we did practice group economics, and was it successful?
I think the best example is what they called the Black Wall Street. It was also called Little Africa. It was also called the Negro Wall Street. And this is where African Americans in a city called Tulsa in Oklahoma, between 1895 and 1921, established a massive business district, which included, amongst other things, 30 restaurants, 5 hotels. They had builders, they had contractors, they had insurance companies, they had a mega church, they had the most impressive nightlife. They had theaters, one that could host 700 patrons at a time. You had 3 black millionaires back then, and I'm talking 1921 money millionaires, which of course dwarfs money today. And those 3 black millionaires, some of them own their own planes. How many black people today can say we've done that? They had 2 schools, they had newspapers, they had oil magnates. And not only did they have these things, it was a standard thing in black homes that they had grand homes with a grand piano. One TV program described it as a black Beverly Hills. And that's how essentially we were stepping right up until 1921 in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
I mean, what's interesting about this case study, and I think you mention it in your book, The Rise and Fall of Black Wall Street, is that we started to practice group economics because of the pressures of racism and segregation during that period.
I think that's right, and I think that's one of the, it shouldn't be a situation where our backs have to be against the wall to practice group economics. It should be something that we do naturally as an ordinary part of our culture.
All right, thank you for that, Robin.
Thank you.
At the moment, within the black community, we don't practice a code of conduct. The most recent statistics, which were done some time ago, actually show that we spend a vast amount of money, but less than 2% of that is spent within the black community.
I was looking at some data recently, and in terms of black people and their spending power, and the figure was 300 billion. Now, what we would like to know is how accurate is that figure?
It is inaccurate. It's difficult to say because 300 billion, out of that, what they also include is the Asian business community as well, and then those that are non-white, so to speak. The last study that was done that I know of, official study, was back in 2005, where a lot of those stats were. But again, it was based on BME rather than Black, African and Caribbean, because you have to remember as well, we have a lot of people in the Asian community who may have been born in Kenya, who actually say that they're African. So it's very, very hard sometimes to differentiate between those Africans and those that just happen to be born on the continent of Africa.
We know that your company was commissioned to do the survey.
That's right.
And in terms of the figure, I'm sorry, I keep going back to this figure.
No, it's fine.
So how true is this figure then in terms of your survey?
What we found at the time, remember it was like, what, 11 years ago now? The statistics showed that it was £40 billion that the black community was spending within, and that was only done within the M25 area. So we just done mostly London and within the M25. However, what that didn't show was that we actually have an influx of a large Nigerian community in the UK who spend billions of pounds just within their own community. So that figure actually wasn't really reflected because at that time we were just getting the influx. Then we also have the Ghanaian community and then the Kenyan community. So if we were actually look at those stats today in 2016, 2017 or whatever, we would actually actually probably be looking closer to the 300 to 370, 80 billion pound mark just within our own community. That's excluding everybody else.
So I would like to touch on your organisation, UK Black Links. Tell us a little bit more about UK Black Links and in relation perhaps to the Code of Conduct.
Well, what it is, the reasoning behind UK Black Links was for us to have a proper economic spending power. Because my late husband, who was the founder, Dele Akinlade, went away, saw the same thing being actually done in Atlanta, where they had black directories and it was perfectly acceptable, and thought that there's nothing like it over here. Quit his job as a stockbroker, had £2,000 in his pocket, called on his friends and started the publication. It was very successful, probably one of the most successful black businesses with entirely black staff. And it was good in the fact that people started recognizing that we actually had some economic power in this country. We actually uncovered over, I think it was like 7,000 black owned and run businesses, from hotels to cinemas, similar to Black Wall Street, but that was right here in the UK. So that was as far as Ireland, right down to Wales. So, you know, we had it here. So with regards to the Code of Conduct, at one stage we were, but then people get, you know, when you go down the shop and maybe your mum or your auntie who are slightly older, and, you know, Mr. Patel is on the corner, they would rather go to Mr. Patel, and, you know, Mr. Jones or Mr. Smith maybe 3 pence more, so they will push up their face and rather go to Mr. Patel. So unfortunately, you know, that has been passed down through the generations, and our community aren't spending how they should do. So that I think they need to take it more seriously.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Greetings, Sister Charmaine.
Greetings.
So touching on level 3 on the Black Group Economic 4 Steps, which is sustainability. What are we as the Black conscious community doing to educate people in relation to the consciousness?
Okay, we are starting to create our own courses and use our own creativity to write books. So you have scholars such as Dr. Boyce Watkins, Dr. Claude Anderson, producing a lot of online materials, online courses to teach people about financial management, black economic empowerment. We have filmmakers producing independent films to reach out to the masses that may not want to come and do a course. They may watch a film. So you have 7 a.m. Generation 1, Search for Black Wealth. You have Hidden Colours 2, which touches on black economic empowerment. And you have the Black Friday documentary. And you have lots of small independent films about Black Wall Street. So people can access the information using their different learning styles, which is quite interesting.
Now, I bear witness to some of the great events that you put on, especially in regards to the economic empowerment of our community. But I would like for you to talk to us about the Black Market and Film Festivals that's taking place.
Okay, the reason why we put together that event, because I would go to events and people say, oh, there's no black businesses, and oh, where did you get this top from, or where did you get this product? And I'm like, oh, this business. And they said, I can never find a black business. So I said, let's put together an event where we can bring all the different black businesses in the community in one forum, in one field. We can use, while they're there, learn about financial management, wealth management, budgeting, all different levels of financial information, and also support independent filmmakers as well. So we have the film festival element, so we can support independent filmmakers with their films, especially premiering a lot of the films that, for example, coming from abroad that we don't get the platform to show over here. So that's what we do with the Black Market and Film Festival. And we try to make it a family focus event, so parents can bring their children so they can learn. So we have children activities for the children to learn as well. And we work together collaboratively with different people in the community. So we work with, for example, Ace of Jacks Radio, gotkushTV, just to make it a collaborative event, because we have to, it's all about group economics, so we have to do that through the work that we do, and also show that to the community that it is possible, that we can work together and share the love, share the economics, and look out for the future, because it's all about, everything that we do is all about black future. Even though we're called Black History Studies, it's all about preparing for our black future, which is very important.
Brilliant. So for those that get this group economics concept and want to practice it but find it difficult to find other black businesses, what would you suggest that they do?
Communicate. speak to people. I'm a walking black economic advocate. So when I wake up in the morning, I put on my shea butter from Calabash Hub. I've got this top on from Grassfields. I've got these earrings from Pieces by Kiki. So I'm actively supporting black businesses wherever I go. I usually wear jewelry and people ask me, where did you get this jewelry from? Especially this ring. Okay. I got this from Zayuni by Design, and this is perfect conversation starter. So people, where do you get these things from? So I always try to memorize people's email addresses to pass it on. If I have a good experience, most of the time with black businesses, I will promote them. And even when people challenges and talk about the negative experiences they have, I always say, why did you have that? Did you feed back to them? So you can share that feedback with that business for them to improve. And we have to be advocates for black businesses.
Most definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a last-minute surprise guest added to this amazing show. Welcome, Esther Stanford.
Greetings.
How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
That's brilliant. How important is it in the Black liberation movement to be represented in politics and to know the laws of the land?
Okay, well, first of all, we have to look at what is Black liberation. Essentially, Black liberation is about us as a people delinking from the oppressive systems and structures that have been holding us down and denying us access to our resources. And in particular, these structures that have been imposed by the global system of white supremacy. It's also then about us not just delinking from these structures, but building alternatives, building an alternative system, including an economic system, building alternative structures and institutions by which we can empower ourselves and collectively organize to harness our resources to meet our own collective needs. So, in that sense, you cannot have Black liberation outside of politics. And when I talk about politics, I'm talking about the process through which we harness and operate our own Black power, the process through which we actually produce, use and distribute our resources, not only our human resources, our material resources, but also the natural resources. So it's essentially how we govern ourselves and how we govern our lives. And so the two are integrally connected, I should say. Now, in terms of the law, there's a connection there too. And we cannot do any of this outside of knowing law, understanding law, making law and shaping law. So it's not just about us knowing the laws of the land. That is important, but it's not the most important. What's most important is that in repairing ourselves, that we re-establish codes of conduct in governing ourselves. So we establish law so that we're not just consumers of other people's impositions on us, that we actually shape and make law in our own best interests. That being said, we have to also understand what laws are existing, to know how we can use them to liberate ourselves and to emancipate ourselves as a group, socially, politically, and economically. And there are some laws that come to mind when I think about group economics in particular. So laws around how we develop legal structures that really are about how we govern the structures that we're building and the enterprises that we're building in terms of cooperative economics as well. And also laws to do with how we can collectively organize and mobilize as a community, even living in Britain and other parts of Europe. So there are laws such as the 2011 Localism Act that enforces a right for community. Now, it's not necessarily defined in the way that we define community, but this is where if we come together as a group, we can exercise our own group power on this to enforce these laws in our own best interest. So it brings about a right for communities to bid, to challenge, to build, and to own resources locally. And that is essential if we're talking about establishing a power base. And not to mention the need for us to understand a human rights law, people's laws around the enforcement of our social, political, economic and cultural rights, such as the right to have a decent standard of living, the right to housing, the right to appropriate work according to our own knowledge and expertise and contributions and labour, the right to social security, the right to food, the right, basic things that we need in order to be full economic producers.
Thank you, sister. Greetings. I would like to welcome Celebra Hyper of Balancing Beads on the Black Group Economic Show. Welcome, my brother.
Greetings, sister.
Tell me a little bit about your company. What is your company's product?
Well, Balancing Beads is a concept I came up with myself back in 2010. Being that we're of the earth and wood is the conductor and we have electricity flowing through us, we need to be balanced and grounded at all times. So the beads balance your electromagnetic field in your body, basically.
Okay. And in terms of your journey so far, in terms of developing your idea in the business, what has it been like so far for you?
It's been joyful. It's been a joyful journey. Enhancing my clients, customers, helping them in life. It's also helped myself. Growing. It's all about growing.
Okay, that's brilliant to hear. And in terms of you starting up as a business, I mean, what kind of advice would you give to someone that's starting up their business for the first time?
Trust your product. Trust yourself, know your product. Have faith.
Yeah? Okay.
You must adapt the philosophy of the snail. Have patience and perseverance.
And in terms of, I see you have a range of items here. I mean, what are the reviews been so far and the feedback in terms of your beads from some of your customers? And what would you consider some of your best sellers here?
Well, as for feedback, the product speaks for itself. The customers love it. As for best sales, I would say it would be amethyst.
Which one is amethyst?
Amethyst is the purple crystal here. The word amethyst actually means to ward off drunkenness. So that doesn't mean drunkenness of alcohol. It could mean drunkenness of work, drunkenness of shopping, drunkenness in general, drunkenness of overeating. So it aids to cancel out that energy there.
Okay.
Yeah, it also deals with protection, divine connection, first eye, which some know as the third eye, activation.
And I noticed in some of your other beads you have some precious stones.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about?
Okay. Well, in this one here, you have this stone is called Citrine. Now, this citrine is amethyst heated up basically to a certain degree. So the properties of citrine is personal will, power, abundance. Okay. This is I call this a crystal. This is my crystal infusion range. The amethyst before was my crystal fusion range.
And if any of the audiences listening right now would like to purchase any of these, what would they need to do?
They could either go on the website, which is www.don'thateinnovate.com. You can purchase via off the website. You could email me at deepfossil@gmail.com. Or you can Instagram balancing_beads. Quite simple. And
can your customers buy these at any shop locations at all?
The crystal fusion range, the shop available for the crystal fusion range is Xylene Arts in Peckham.
Okay.
Yeah, they have their own exclusive ones to
them.
So yeah, Xylene Arts in Peckham is available. My classic collection range is available in Pempanzi, Brixton Hill.
All right. So I just want to say it's brilliant having you on the show and find out more about your brand and your products, and I hope to maybe see you again. Thank you.
It's been a joy. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Marley Morris from Back to Black Empire to the Black Group Economics Show.
Thank you very much.
Would you like to tell us about your products and service, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Back to Black Empire has been a brainchild of myself and my wife. We wanted to have something designed for us and by us. I remember growing up hearing about a company called Fubu, and I wanted to actually continue that to something that has been designed for community and done by ourselves.
Okay. So what are the actual products now? Because we've got some umbrellas
so
here.
These are the major products. We've got 3 umbrellas. All of them have an African design to them. So we have one that is brown and beige with orange highlights, which has a Kenyan design to it. So we had taken a trip to Kenya, was really taken aback by the people there, by traveling into Uganda and seeing a little town called Ginger. We really loved it, and from that we decided we wanted to draw a little bit about what we remember there, and those drawings are on the umbrella.
So in terms of the sizes, can you get a little one to put in your bag, or is it just the large one?
Yeah, absolutely. So this one here, we designed, well, you know, the wife actually designed this one. And the idea was to have a wet bag included with the actual umbrella. I won't open it because it's so powerful. But it has the Back to Black moniker on the actual umbrella.
Which is this?
Which is this one just here.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And it also has a kente frill to the end of it with it's also got a nice little hummingbird on it as well, Dr. Bird, on the umbrella. So it's sort of like West Africa meets the West Indies. And that was the whole idea of us being able to have something that is really for our community and something to be proud of. I mean, London is known for the rain.
Of course.
Rain, fog, that's what it's known for. So, you know, when we was thinking about things to do, the idea would have, the first thing you think of is t-shirts, that's really simple. But when you look at something like an umbrella, that's very practical. So we wanted to make sure that it had a good price point, that it was practical, and it actually represented us as well.
So in terms of your journey, okay, what would you say, because we have quite a few people watching today who's probably thinking about setting up their own business. What are some of the challenges that you've experienced along your journey?
We had to get very comfortable with disappointment. Like, expect it. Just expect that if you want to, you know, the thing is, when you're working in a job, you're disappointed pretty much by, you know, every morning when you have to get up, you have that feeling of, I've got to do this again. And then usually around about week 3 of the month, when your money's running low, or it's finished, and the month isn't finished yet, you haven't been paid yet, again you feel disappointment in what you're doing. So I know that we're used to having that feeling of disappointment, but for some reason, we're not expecting it, or we allow disappointment to make us stop when we're trying to do something for ourselves. So the first thing that we had to get very comfortable with was feeling like as though we failed or we've done something not as best as we could, but then being willing to pick ourselves up and then do it again and do it again and do it better than last time, and being willing to actually learn from your mistakes as well. So when you make a mistake, recognize it as an opportunity to learn something and do your best not to do it again. You will do it again because we're imperfect, but learn to try and learn not to do that again.
So did you have any support in terms of business advice, training to get you through your stages?
I'd say that we had a lot of opinions. A lot of people saying it's a bad idea.
That's interesting.
And a lot of people who said, why would you take that money that you've saved and put it into an umbrella? Because you're going to sell your umbrella for £10 and you can go and get an umbrella from, you know, from Boots for half that price. So why would you do that? We were you know, told, well, stick to just one thing. So when we first started, we were selling greeting cards, for example. And when that was going well for greeting cards, we were told, well, just stick with greeting cards, don't go into something like umbrellas. So what we've realized is that what we want to do is put our idea or our viewpoint of what is required for ourselves and what's required for our community, and we're going to put it out there regardless of the opinions and the naysayers. Yeah, and so far it's been successful as well.
It's interesting that you mentioned about how you actually finance the business, because that's one of the biggest problems that we have in terms of black businesses and financing or accessing finance. The funds that you used to start up, was it self-financed, or did you use other sources as well?
It was self-financed.
Was that by choice?
No, I think at the end of the day, there are opportunities to go to like the bank and ask for a business loan. That's one way. But when you do that, you need to provide a business plan, and you need to, satisfy somebody else's criteria of what you want to do. So if I was to go into a bank right now and say, I have this great idea, I'm going to do African-inspired umbrellas for the UK, they would tell me to go away because there's not a viable business plan. So what we decided to do was, I use the analogy of a vehicle. I have a bike and I have a car, okay? But sometimes I take the train and sometimes I fly. So if I want to get to so far, I'll use the bike. Well, when we first started, we couldn't finance these, but what we could do was finance some greeting cards. So we did the greeting cards, and then we were able to then use that money to be able to finance the umbrellas. And then from the umbrellas, we were able to put on an event last year, which gave us enough money to then do other things that we've got planned for the future. So we were willing to take the long game and grow that finance ourselves, and be willing to sacrifice in order to be able to make that finance happen.
And it's interesting you mentioned about the sacrifice. So, and this is another thing for people that's thinking about setting up their business for the first time. It's the sacrifice. It's the time and the effort you have to put in this. Would you want to expand on that a little bit more in terms of your own experiences?
Yeah, I would say first of all that there is no shame in being broke if you're doing it for something that is for your future. So whereas people would take, let's see, so you're going to spend, let's say, 8 hours a day in your 9-to-5 job. You're willing to sacrifice 8 hours of your life every day of the month for a paycheck. So then sacrifice 4 hours more for yourself. Because at the end of the day, with one, that sacrifice benefits somebody else. Someone else's children are going to private school. Somebody else has been able to fund their nice house in Finchley. So sacrifice 4 hours for yourself. When it's time to go out and you want to look good, don't look good and go out. It's okay. Nothing happens to you. You're still alive. If you want to go out and you want to have a big meal, but you can't afford it, stay home and cook your wife a big meal and do that instead. Because at the end of the day, when you're looking back and saying, well, there is a shop in this part of London and that part of London, or in Boston or in New York, selling these items that we drew in our house. Like, we used to have these meetings. We had to have our business meeting on Sunday morning. So it was always in bed, right? It was always with a cup of tea and toast. And we would draw the pictures of the umbrellas. And I've still got this design here on this umbrella.
Okay.
As on a big piece of paper that I drew out, just myself. It's so much more rewarding to sacrifice in order to be able to look back and have that as something that you've actually accomplished. So, yeah.
And even in that reflection, would you change anything along your journey if you could?
I mean, there's things that you could look back and go, well, we could have saved here, we could have done something differently there. But I've just taken those and said, right, on the next thing, I won't fall into that trap again. So there are always going to be things you're going to look back and say, I did something incorrectly, but do not regret those things, because if you didn't have those things, you would have got to where you are and you wouldn't have the wisdom that you now have. So take the bad with the good. It's all good in the end.
Looking forward,
yes.
Where do you see yourself 5 to 10 years' time?
Oh, I can answer that. under it's either a cashew tree or it's going to be a lime or lemon tree. But it's on some land in an area called Sanyang in Gambia.
Okay.
One of the things that we did when we had our event is that I put down some money on a plot of land. And so now what we're doing is talking to an architect to be able to start figuring out how it's going to work. But I've already seen my space where I'm going to put my chair and sit under my cashew tree and do that. And that's exactly where I intend to be in 5 years' time. I've already told my children, don't expect Daddy to be around that much. I'll be here half of the year because the other half of the year I'll be under my tree. You can find me there. I love to work into the future. You know, I love the fact that I can learn about our history, but it really, the bit that really drives me is when I see those powerful men and women, those ancestors, who were able to see ahead, see forward, you know, the Marcus Garveys and Malcolm X's, who could see ahead and say, well, that's where we're going, and then speak that into the future. So what I do in my day-to-day is that I speak my future, and that will happen. So even in this interview, I could have given you a very sort of business level answer, like, oh, well, you know, we'll have 20 more umbrellas, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to use that opportunity to speak my future, because it has to happen. So that's what I say.
One more question. So for the purpose of our viewers, what would be some advice that you would like to pass on to them if they're looking to start their business for the first time?
I would say, you know, give yourself some goals, and then put a by when on each goal. Okay? So if, for example, you say that the first thing that I'm going to start, let's say I'm going to start a minicab company, right? So if you're going to start a minicab company, the first thing you need to do is say, right, well, I'm going to find me a premises from which I'm going to run that business. Then say by when you're going to do it. Because if you don't say by when, you end up waiting a year, things get in the way, and things will happen. That's just what life is about. And do the by when, they're the most important. Talk to people about what you want to do. Because one of the, you know, as humans, we don't like failure. We don't like things to go wrong. And I found personally that because I don't want to go wrong, I tell people what I'm going to do, and then they'll say to me, hey, Marley, what happened to that thing you was talking about? Now I feel embarrassed I haven't done it. So just for the sake of not being embarrassed, I will do the thing. So tell people about what you're going to do. That's the first thing. Put a time limit, a by when and when you're going to do it. And then, you know, call on every piece of energy that you have. Remember your history, remember your pedigree, you know, call up those ancestors, those people, whoever it is, whether you have to like call on Nanny Maroon or call on, you know, Washington Carver, and just say, I need you right now. And then use that strength to then propel you into the future to make your business happen.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Marley Morris, so how can our viewers purchase these umbrellas? From where?
Yeah, so first place you can go on to is backtoblackempire.com. You'll find the umbrellas there. If you're in London, you can also find it there in Brixton. We're in Brixton, just on Atlantic Road. You'll find it also in Pempamsey on Brixton Hill. You can find us in East London at the Mama Africa Culture Shop, or you can go to West London at the Wellness Centre. So there's a few places in London that you can find us, but everybody else, just come online. I would be happy to post one out to you.
Marley Morris, thank you. You're an inspiration,
Thank you,
for coming on our show. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Welcome, Ida, from Mother and Diaspora
Yes, thank
to
you.
the Black Group Economics Show. Could you tell us a bit about your brand, please?
Okay, so my brand is it's contemporary African-inspired art. So I kind of dabble in all sorts of things. Like I have my graphic design, I have my more physical string art design, and I also have T-shirt designs.
And you have one on right now?
And I have I
Okay.
have my T-shirt on right now, which is inspired by Malcolm X. This is by Enemies Necessary quote.
And what is the inspiration behind the range of ideas? What triggered you to decide to design this?
Well, what triggered me was I was working at a school and it was GCSE time and I was invigilating the exams. So it's very boring having to sit there just watching people do exams. So I just sat there and I was just drawing, I was doodling, and I came up with all kinds of ideas, and that's what triggered all this basically. I started off with my graphic designs. I think my first piece was this one, Janelle Monet's piece. And so from then on, I basically continued, and then I found out about different kinds of art. So that's how the string art came about, and also the T-shirt designs.
And are you thinking about expanding your range, perhaps?
Yes, so I've tested out phone cases, which is another thing. Badges,
Can I show that?
yes.
Can you show that? Yeah.
Phone case, badges. I've got ideas for other T-shirts and like bags and things like that too.
And I mean, for example, in terms of this piece here, what inspired this particular piece?
Well, this piece is a string art of Swaziland. So what happened was I had created a few others of different countries. I think it was a Kenyan one that I had as well. And someone reached out to me on Instagram and she said that she's from Swaziland, but she's currently living in the USA and she wants something to kind of connect her back to her home country. So with this one, it is basically Africa and then a heart around the country and also the flag behind it.
Okay, so eventually, well, then, actually, I make an assumption. Are you making sales on the continent, first of all? If not, is that some of your aspirations as well?
So my sales are mainly people who are from the continent but have moved to Western countries.
Okay.
So yes, I do want to connect back home, but right now it's people who kind of want to connect themselves back with their home country.
Okay. And I know in terms of, you're at the very early stages of your business right now,
Yes.
but in terms of the black markets, and creating an awareness of your brand. I mean, what's your experience been so far?
Well, I've been to one. Well, actually, I used to help my auntie out, who also started her own business. So my experience is behind the counter, helping out selling her hair products. So I had experience with interacting with people and finding out how these kind of events work. So with that, I kind of brought that experience towards my own. So I do want to book like tables for these future events at some point. But for myself, I haven't actually been to one of them.
Okay. And if any of our viewers wanted to purchase any of your items here, how can they go about doing that?
I have a website, which is www.motheranddiaspora.com. I also have a Facebook page, which is the same, Mother and Diaspora, and an Instagram, which is Mother and Diaspora.
And I would just like to say, as a young person, it's always an inspiration to see young people taking that leap of faith and really kind of showing the rest of us that, you know, you can do it at any age. Yeah, so that's brilliant. So thank you, Ida, for kind of showing us all the fantastic things that you have here. And please support this young entrepreneur. Thank you. What should black people be doing as an immediate call to action? 1. Educate yourself about group economics by researching Dr. Claude Anderson, as we feel he breaks down the subject in the simplest form. Check out other content on the subject, such as the 7 a.m. and Black Fridays DVD, promoted by Black History Studies, Rail Cell Web, the concept advocated by the Holy Coptic Church, and the Black Wall Street, promoted by Robin Walker, The Rise and Fall of Black Wall Street. 2. Link up with other black people who share this mentality. Although there are a few brands out there like Black History Studies, UK Black Links, and so forth, there aren't much black people out there that understand this concept and are familiar with it. Some might say that this is nothing new to black people, but we beg to differ because it must be practiced in the sequence model stated above for it to work. There are 2 parts to this. Identify all black-owned businesses in your area, country, and worldwide, and only spend your money with them. Support black businesses and black market events around the UK. Remember we said, how can you practice group economics if there isn't any black businesses to spend your money with? Number 4, work on opening up your own business and practice. Black group economics. When we do this to the point where we are subconsciously thinking about it, then we'll be on our way to true liberation. The secret to creating wealth is to own and control resources. Powernomics, the National Plan to Empowering Black America by Dr. Claude Anderson. Remember, we are used to spending our money with others. For us to practice group economics, it's not the norm. Change is gradual.
gotkushTV.com is now opening for you to advertise, calling all businesses, promoters, event organizers, artists, service providers, content creators, and brands of every kind. If you are looking to share your business or services with a growing and diverse audience, gotkushTV is the space for you. Advertising space is available all over the website. You can advertise here, 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 and you can even advertise here. All spaces are going at very reasonable rates, and we even have a design and production service, especially for those who will need an advert designed or produced for you. For inquiries, don't hesitate to contact us. info@gotkushtv.co.uk. Advertising on gotkushtv.com. We look forward to hearing from you.